Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about someone that's in the news that I feel is fascinating, especially when I go back and study his chart relative to events historically. So this is going to really open your eyes to seeing things from a different vantage point. So before I continue on, I'd like to remind everyone, if you'd like to have all of my predictions delivered free to your email address, sign up for my newsletter. Go to galacticcenter.org. And while you're there, please note that I also have a magazine, a monthly magazine, interviews some of the most talked about spiritual people and astrologers. So it is about 100 pages of valuable information, articles you won't want to miss. Joni Patry's Astrology Insights, only $9.99 a month. And if you would like to meet me, come to Dallas. I'm having a conference June 2nd through the 5th. I would love to meet you. We have some of the dream team of astrologers teaching classes, and it's going to be a blast, so I hope to see you there. All right, so let's get on with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s chart, who is now running for president. And I want to bring up something really interesting before we take off and look at his chart, and that is, did you know that his father, Robert Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, that was assassinated in 1968, in June of 1968, was running against the incumbent president at the time, LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who, if you've seen my previous video, and I urge you to watch Who Killed Kennedy, I did a video, it's here on my YouTube channel, check it out. I have some amazing details that give specific references to who was behind the assassination of Kennedy. And you know, I've been very afraid to say so for many years because, as many of you know, I was born and raised in Dallas, and I was around during the time of President Kennedy's assassination. Remember it well. And happened to know a lot of people behind the scenes throughout the years, and I came down with my conclusion based on astrology as well. And let me just say this. Yes, it was not just one person that was behind this. So it was not Lee Harvey Oswald. It was the government. It was the CIA. It was the sitting vice president that went to this much extreme to eliminate Kennedy. And the reason why no one knows, they will not release this to the public, because it is very damaging to want to know that the United States government could be like this. Okay, so my point is, with looking at today, Robert Kennedy Jr., who's running for president now, that his father was running against LBJ, who was the sitting Democratic president at the time. And oh, surprise, surprise, he was assassinated too. That's very interesting. So what's interesting today, how is this even correlated at all? Well, it's not, but it is. It's interesting, the correlation that Robert Kennedy is running against the Democratic incumbent president. So what is that? That's kind of a similarity here. And there is so many things being exposed about corruption going on in the government and everyone that surrounds it. So Kennedy is coming across with some very extreme claims. But, you know, at this time in our world, people are starting to say, what if he's right? What if anything that he's been saying has some kind of credibility? And of course, those in power will probably make him look pretty bad if they don't like what he's saying. That's just the name of the game. It's how it goes. So let's put up Robert Kennedy Jr.'s chart. And by the way, we do not have his birth time. I searched all over, and I'm not taking other people's guess on what time he's born. So what we do in Vedic astrology is we look at the moon chart. In other words, if we know what the moon is on that day, which we do, the moon that day was the entire day, it was in Gemini. So we're going to make Gemini the ascendant and look at his chart from the moon. Because remember, when you look at a chart from the moon, it's always going to give you how someone feels about their life, their feelings, their emotions. The moon is the mind. And sometimes I do find that when I look at a chart from the moon as the ascendant, it sometimes gives more pertinent and specific information than even the ascendant does. And the ascendant is based on the birth time. Since we don't have a time, we do know that the moon is in Gemini. The moon changes signs every 2.5 days. And luckily, this day that he was born, January 17th, 1954, the moon was in Gemini the whole day. So let's look at his chart from the moon. And what's interesting is his moon does sit with Uranus, the planet of unexpected change, of unconventional attitudes and ways of thinking. And you got to know he is that for sure. But I thought it was so interesting that if you go 8 placements, 8 houses away from where the moon is, there is a very powerful stellium of planets. He has Mercury, Sun, Venus, Rahu, all there in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign of government. It is the sign of discipline and focus, but it is definitely the sign of ambition and drive. It all sits in the 8th house, and notably the sun, which can be the indication of the father, sits in the 8th house. The 8th house is known to be the house of death, of scandals, of disgrace, of humiliation. But it is the house of research, analysis, going beyond this world to find answers. And maybe that's exactly what he is going to bring out, whether he becomes president or not. There is a lot that is about to unfold with this particular individual who's not afraid to speak the truth. His truth, whether you believe his truth or not, he is speaking what he believes. Okay? And I believe that for the most part, all of us are like that. We speak what we believe. Now, is it the truth? Not always. But let's just play into what we're seeing here. So he has Venus exactly conjunct Rahu with the Sun and Mercury. Yes, Venus is definitely combusts the Sun, and it is next to Rahu. It is very harshly surrounded by malefics, and it is in the 8th house. Okay, so what is that? The 8th house is the house that deals with death, with problems, with scandals. Yes. So this is a tough chart. To grow up in the Kennedy family and his father was assassinated when he was just a child, That's really tough. And he had so many siblings. I think, he was one of 7, maybe 8. I don't recall exactly, but whatever, from a huge Catholic family. And his Venus sits in between Rahu and the Sun. He has problems in relationships. And he has been married many times. That's what I have surmised from Wikipedia. But looking at this, Rahu, I think his wife is an actress, yes, famous. So Venus Rahu could be a partner that's foreign or well-known somehow out in the world. But look at this 8th house energy. You gotta know that he has experienced great problems in life. And the other thing is, when you think about the father, yes, the Sun is the father. It's in the 8th house. He lost his father. But Saturn rules the 9th house from the moon, and it sits in the 5th house. But it is tightly conjunct Mars. And Mars is a malefic for Gemini rising. It rules the 6th house of accidents, the 6th house of lawsuits, accidents, enemies, problems. And it sits on top of Saturn, which is the ruler of the 9th, of the father. And don't forget, Mars is also weapons. His father was killed with a weapon, with a gun. And the whole thing about his father's death was exactly like Kennedy's. It was like a lone gunman was supposed to do it, although there's so many more bullets than that lone gunman actually shot. And the shot that killed him, his father that is, was the one that was at close range. This guy, Sirhan, that killed Bobby Kennedy, was not close up. Once again, same scenario. They got somebody as a patsy, and yeah, he might have had a gun and shot, but it was all instigated. You can say that's a conspiracy theory, but the facts behind it, LBJ being involved as the person in power that was threatened again, and all of the surrounding circumstances. We'll see. But for the most part, you can't say anything. Because if you do, all of a sudden you disappear. I'm saying this for Robert Kennedy Jr.'s family. They knew what to do if they wanted to survive. So someone asked him in an interview, and to be honest with you, I don't remember if it was a long time ago or if it was recent. Is he afraid to run for president? Is he afraid to be assassinated? And he said, no. It's more important to him and his uncle and his father and him that they fight for the truth. And most of all, what he said was freedom. And that's what Robert Kennedy Jr. believes right now, that our freedoms are being taken from us. That's his belief. And that's what he believes he's fighting for. Whether you believe that, it doesn't matter. This is his chart. This is who he is. And with Neptune, Saturn, Mars in the 5th house, the 5th house is the house of intelligence. And I must say, Saturn being there is exalted. An exalted Saturn is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And to have exalted Saturn in the 5th is powerful. And it is with Mars, which is that Saturn-Mars conjunction. I always say it is the power to always try again. No matter how many times you are defeated, you will get up and you'll try again. It deals with an overriding ability to be persistent, to be adamant, to try to, you can't try anymore. And guess what? that usually breeds success, because one of those times you could succeed. Get knocked down, but you get back up. That's the Mars-Saturn conjunction. And Saturn, being ruler of the ninth, exalted, I mean, that represents his father. And if you consider the fact that Saturn sits with Mars, his father was attacked and assassinated, and Saturn sits next to Neptune, it's a scandal. And the truth has never come out. Will it ever come out? No matter what anyone says, it will always be a conspiracy. So, even with facts, it'll always be a conspiracy. So there. Another thing that I find that is relative about his chart is the fact that the dispositing planets of Saturn, Mars, it's Venus. I mean, consider this. Venus is the dispositor of Saturn, which represented his father, because Venus rules Libra, and that is the most harmed planet in the 8th house of death, conspiracy, scandals, and it's with Rahu. And it's with the sun. You know what that's actually called? Apapakatari yoga. When a planet is surrounded by malefics, it's hemmed in and it is strangled. And strangled almost to death with this. So this is what I'm seeing. All of this reverts back to this powerful, powerful 8th house. And if you will note, there is actually Saturn being in Libra. Remember, Saturn rules the 9th house of his father. And if you jump over there to Venus that rules Libra, Venus actually sits in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. So therefore, Saturn and Venus are in mutual exchange of signs, which we call a parivartana, which means those two planets are tied and locked together. And actually, it means that Venus is like it's in Libra, and Saturn is like it's in Capricorn. They exchange and they become one, but they also exchange and give the relevance and the meanings of their mutual exchange of signs. Saturn in Capricorn, Venus in Libra. Powerful combination, and it represents his family, his father. Saturn ruling the 9th. And Venus rules the 5th. This is incredible, really, to think about just looking at Chandra Lagna, the moon as the ascendant, what you can see about his father. So enough about his father. What do you think about his future as he runs for President of the United States? It's not going to be easy for him. You know, he's got some forces that don't like him, all right? And those forces are extremely powerful. I'm not going to even attempt to say what they are, okay? But by the time of the presidential election in 2024, he will be in Venus Rahu's dasha. That is amazing. Now, I wish I knew what time he was born. I mean, if these planets were in his 10th house, this would definitely temper what I can say about this. But here's what I do know. I don't know if this is going to harm him for trying to be president, because they are in the 8th house from the moon. The 8th house is the most difficult house of the chart. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have a chance to win. It really depends on what time he's born, which we don't have. Plus, I'd like to look at the charts of who else he's going to be running with, or the charts of who he's running against altogether. We don't know these things yet. But let me say this, that the 8th house is the house of scandals. Maybe you can say he'll be part of a scandal. Maybe he'll uncover scandals. I think it's probably both. It is huge what is going to come with this fearless man running for president. He doesn't care what he says. He doesn't care what happens to him. And therefore, when you have fearless people, you're going to see a lot unveil in this political race. It will be probably more astounding than the race that happened with Donald Trump winning the presidency. This is going to be awakening. I think it's time that the truth really comes out, and I think all of this is happening for a reason. And I have to say, I don't know why all the information was given to me, of all people, and I didn't even tell you everything I know because I can't, about Kennedy's assassination. I'm talking President Kennedy. Because it all seemed to surface for me recently, and I know there's a reason. And the fact that Bobby Kennedy's come back onto the stage, Jr. Something's up, something's going to be revealed. And I think what I've been saying all along, you're sick of me saying it, but this is it. The truth is finally coming out, and the truth heals. It's going to cause a lot of disruption, insecurity, but overall, this is what needs to happen, the truth. And another thing is, thinking about by the time of the elections, transiting Jupiter, he will have a Jupiter return. Jupiter will be on his natal Jupiter. It is in the 12th house from the moon, which is not necessarily the greatest house for winning anything. I will give you that, because the 12th house is loss. So we will see, but I'll say something else. Rahu in this next year will be in Pisces. Rahu will be in Pisces beginning the end of November of 2023, and it will be in Pisces for a year and a half to follow. So it will be in Pisces pretty much with the next elections. And one thing I do remember, that in 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and Robert Kennedy, Senator Kennedy, was assassinated in 1968, and Rahu was in Pisces, where it will be beginning the end of this year. And it will be there through the time of the 2024 elections. And that just means a lot is coming out concerning what happened in 1968. I think there's going to be some truth finding come out, because the nodes have come back to the same positions they were in 68. So what does that mean? When the nodes come back, we discover something more about the times previously where the nodes were. So I will keep you in the know with more of these things as they evolve, but this is what I have for you now. And hopefully we can come up with his birth time. And then I can give you some more specific information. But with this, we can see a lot. And a lot is transpiring. And I think it is fascinating that this has all come to the surface. Robert Kennedy Jr. now. Couldn't be a better time when the truth needs to come out. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on me, if you would like to study with me, study Vedic astrology, go to my university website, which is University of Vedic Astrology.com. And don't forget to sign up for my free newsletter, get my magazine, all of that. You can get that on my website, galacticcenter.org. And if you'd like to come out to the conference, I'd love to meet you. Remember, that's in Dallas, Texas, June 2nd through the 5th. And it's futureofastrology.com. Thank you.